Cannons roared, muskets flashed. Across the battlefield, French troops surged forward, an unstoppable tide of blue and white driven by the unwavering will of their general. Napoleon Bonaparte, a whirlwind of ambition and strategic genius, commanded the field like a maestro conducting a symphony of war. His piercing gaze, often described as radiating an almost supernatural intensity, seemed to see into the heart of every maneuver, predicting his enemy's moves with uncanny accuracy. With each victory, his legend grew, his name whispered in awe and fear across Europe. From the sun-drenched plains of Italy to the windswept sands of Egypt, Napoleon's star blazed bright, a beacon of military might in a world teetering on the precipice of change. His was a life lived at breakneck speed, a relentless pursuit of glory and power. He possessed a work ethic that dwarfed those around him, sleeping little and dictating orders at a pace that left his secretaries scrambling. But amidst the chaos of war and the machinations of politics, Napoleon remained a captivating enigma. He could be charming and witty one moment, cold and calculating the next. He inspired fierce loyalty in his men, who saw in him a leader who shared their hardships and celebrated their triumphs. Yet, he could also be ruthless and unforgiving, demanding absolute obedience and brooking no dissent. Napoleon's journey to the pinnacle of power was as improbable as it was meteoric. From humble beginnings, he would rise to command armies and reshape the destiny of nations. Born on the rugged island of Corsica, a land steeped in tradition and fiercely independent, Napoleon's early environment was one of resilience and pride. He entered the world in 1769, just a year after France had annexed the island. This political shift would play a crucial role in shaping his future ambitions. His family, of minor nobility but limited means, instilled in him a deep pride in his Corsican heritage, a pride that would later intertwine with his ambition for France. The Bonapartes were not wealthy, but they were rich in spirit and determination. This duality of identity, being Corsican by birth and French by political reality, created a unique blend of influences that would define his character and drive. Early on, Napoleon displayed a prodigious intellect and a thirst for knowledge, particularly in the realm of military history and strategy. His voracious reading habits set him apart from his peers. He devoured tales of Alexander the Great and Julius Caesar, committing their campaigns to memory, analyzing their every move. These historical figures became his idols, their exploits a blueprint for his own ambitions. He excelled at the military academy, graduating early and embarking on a career in the French army. His timing was impeccable, as the winds of change were sweeping through France. The French Revolution had erupted, shattering the old order and plunging the nation into turmoil. This period of upheaval created a fertile ground for new leaders to emerge. It was a time of chaos, but also a time of unprecedented opportunity for ambitious young men like Napoleon. The revolution opened doors that had previously been sealed shut by the rigid class structures of the Ancien Régime. His rise through the ranks was nothing short of phenomenal. In a matter of years, he went from an obscure officer to a prominent military leader. He distinguished himself in early campaigns, showcasing his tactical brilliance and his ability to inspire his men. His leadership style was both charismatic and ruthless, earning him the loyalty and fear of his troops. He understood the power of momentum, of striking swiftly and decisively, exploiting his enemy's weaknesses while maximizing his own strengths. His strategies were innovative, often catching his adversaries off guard. His victories in Italy against the might of Austria cemented his reputation as a military genius. These campaigns were not just battles, they were masterclasses in the art of war, and his star continued its relentless ascent. With each victory, his influence grew, setting the stage for his eventual rise to Emperor of the French. Napoleon's journey was far from over. It was only just beginning. The Battle of Austerlitz, fought on a frosty December morning in 1805, stands as a testament to Napoleon's tactical brilliance. This battle, often regarded as his greatest victory, showcased not only his military genius, but also his ability to inspire and lead his troops under the most challenging conditions, and his ability to outmaneuver and crush his opponents. The French army, though smaller in number, was highly disciplined and motivated, ready to follow their leader into the jaws of battle. This battle of the three emperors pitted Napoleon's French forces against the combined might of the Russian and Austrian armies, a coalition that believed their numerical superiority would guarantee victory. A clash of titans that would determine the fate of Europe. The stakes were incredibly high, with the future of the continent hanging in the balance. Outnumbered and facing a formidable enemy, Napoleon remained undaunted. His confidence was not misplaced. It was rooted in his deep understanding of warfare and his meticulous planning. He had studied the terrain meticulously, anticipating his enemy's movements and formulating a daring plan. Every hill, valley and river was taken into account, ensuring that his troops would have the upper hand. As dawn broke, the Allied armies, confident in their superior numbers, launched a series of attacks on what they believed to be the weak point of the French lines. Their strategy seemed sound, but they were walking into a trap. But Napoleon had anticipated this move. His foresight and strategic acumen were about to turn the tide of battle. He had deliberately weakened his right flank, drawing the enemy in, luring them into a carefully laid trap. The Allied forces, thinking they had found a vulnerability, pressed forward with all their might. Just as the Allied forces committed to the attack, Napoleon unleashed his reserves, smashing into the exposed enemy center with overwhelming force. The effect was devastating. The French cavalry and infantry, held in reserve, now surged forward with unstoppable momentum. The Allied lines buckled and broke, sending the Russian and Austrian armies reeling in defeat. The battlefield was soon a scene of chaos, with the once confident Allies in full retreat. Austerlitz was a triumph of strategic genius, a masterpiece of battlefield maneuver that cemented Napoleon's reputation as the greatest military mind of his age. His ability to adapt and respond to the fluid dynamics of battle was unparalleled. It was a victory that sent shockwaves across Europe, solidifying French dominance and confirming Napoleon's status as the undisputed master of the battlefield. The news of the victory spread quickly, and celebrations erupted across France, marking a new era of Napoleonic supremacy. Even the most brilliant stars eventually dim. Their light, once a beacon of hope and power, fades into the vast expanse of the universe, leaving behind only memories of their former glory. For Napoleon, the Russian campaign of 1812 marked the beginning of his downfall, a catastrophic miscalculation that would shatter his aura of invincibility and set in motion his ultimate demise. This campaign, often referred to as the Patriotic War of 1812 in Russia, was a turning point not just for Napoleon, but for the entire European continent. The vastness of Russia, with its harsh climate and scorched earth tactics, had swallowed up armies before, but Napoleon, blinded by his past triumphs, remained convinced of his ability to overcome any obstacle. He underestimated the sheer scale of the land and the resilience of its people, who were determined to defend their homeland at any cost. The invasion began in June with the Grande Armée, a vast force of over 600,000 men crossing the Namen River into Russian territory. This army, composed of soldiers from various nations under Napoleon's control, was one of the largest ever assembled in Europe. The initial advance was swift, but the Russians, refusing to engage in a decisive battle, retreated deeper into their vast hinterland, drawing the French further and further from their supply lines. This strategic withdrawal, known as the scorched earth policy, involved burning crops and villages to deny the French any resources. As the summer wore on, the scorching heat took its toll, and the Grande Armée, stretched thin and increasingly demoralized, began to falter. The soldiers, unaccustomed to the extreme temperatures and the vast distances, started to suffer from exhaustion and heat stroke. Then came the Russian winter, a brutal force of nature that descended upon the French with unrelenting fury. The temperature plummeted rapidly, catching the Grande Armée unprepared for the severe cold. The temperature plummeted, turning the once fertile countryside into a frozen wasteland. Rivers and lakes froze solid, and the landscape was blanketed in a thick layer of snow, making movement and supply lines nearly impossible to maintain. Supplies dwindled, horses perished, and the Grande Armée, ravaged by hunger, disease, and the relentless cold, began to disintegrate. The soldiers, once a formidable force, were now reduced to scavenging for food and shelter in the unforgiving wilderness. The retreat from Moscow, a harrowing odyssey of suffering and death, became a symbol of Napoleon's hubris and the limits of even the most brilliant military mind when confronted with the unforgiving forces of nature and human endurance. The once proud Grande Army was now a shadow of its former self, a testament to the devastating consequences of overreach and the harsh realities of war.